In the winter of 1959, 9 experienced hikers entered the frozen mountains of the Soviet Union. Young, strong, and highly trained. They had survived countless expeditions before, but this journey would become their last. Weeks later, search teams finally found their camp. The tent was still standing, but something about it didn't make sense at all. The tent had been cut open, not from the outside, but from the inside. Bare footprints led away into the snow. No shoes, no proper clothing, just footprints. As if something had terrified them so badly that they had abandoned safety. They ran into the freezing darkness one by one. Their bodies would eventually be discovered, but even after more than 60 years, nobody can say with certainty what really happened that night. This is the story of the Dyatlov Pass Incident. That day, among those 9 people, the one leading the expedition was a young engineering student named Igor Dyatlov. He was only 23 years old, but despite his age, he was already known among his friends as an experienced and capable leader. And he wasn't alone. Alongside, there were students, engineers, and athletes. Almost people who shared the same love for adventure. They all planned to cross the northern Ural mountain. It wasn't going to be easy. Temperatures could drop below minus. They planned to cross the northern Ural mountains, but it wasn't going to be easy. Temperatures could drop below minus 30 degrees. The terrain was unforgiving, and the weather could turn deadly without warning. But for this group, challenges like this were part of their excitement. They had done difficult expeditions before, and they believed that they were ready for anything and everything. Before leaving, they promised their families they would return soon, but none of them could have imagined that this journey would one day become one of the greatest mysteries in history. Everything seemed normal at first. As the days passed, the group continued their journey deeper into the mountains. And according to the plan, they were supposed to send a message once they reached. But days went by and no message came. At first, nobody thought too much about it, because after all, this kind of delays were not unusual. The team was experienced, and bad weather in the mountains could easily slow them down. But as more days passed, the family started becoming worried, and eventually a search operation was launched. Nobody knew it at the time, but the people searching for them were about to stumble upon something that shocked the entire world. Because what they found made absolutely no sense. After days of searching, the rescue team finally found the camp, and at the first glance, everything seemed strangely normal. Their tents were still standing, most of their belongings were still inside. Food, clothes, equipments, everything. Nothing appeared to be stolen or missing, but then they noticed something strange. The tent had been cut open, not from the outside, but from the inside, almost as if the people inside had been trying to escape. And what they saw outside only made things even more confusing. The footprints leading away from the tent. But these weren't normal footprints. Some of them belonged to people who were wearing shoes. Others appeared to have wearing only socks. And These footprints were heading straight into the freezing darkness. No one understood why, because outside the temperature had dropped to nearly minus 30 degrees, and leaving the safety of the tent under those conditions made absolutely no sense. But that was only the beginning, because the people searching the area still hadn't found the hikers themselves. And then, search team finally made their first discovery. Not very far from the camp, under a large cedar tree, they found two bodies. Both of them were barefoot, and strangely, neither of them was wearing proper winter clothing. That raised an even bigger question. If they had left the tent in such a hurry, why didn't they taken their clothes with them? But things became even stranger as the search continued, because three more bodies were discovered. One of them belonged to Igor Dyatlov himself. And the position of these bodies told a disturbing story, because it almost looked like they had been trying to find their way back to the tent, as if whatever had forced them out had happened suddenly, and now they were desperately trying to return. But they never made it. Months later, when the snow finally began to melt, the remaining four bodies were discovered, and what investigators saw this time would make the mystery even darker. That should have been the end of the mystery, but when investigators finally examined the remaining bodies, they realized something wasn't right. Some of them had suffered massive injuries, one had severe skull fracture, other had broken ribs. And according to the investigators, the force behind these injuries was so powerful that it looked more like a car crash than an attack by any other human being. But what confused everyone even more was that many of these injuries had almost no external wounds at all, which raised another question. What could possibly cause such devastating internal injuries without leaving major marks on the outside? And then investigators noticed something else. One of the victims was missing her tongue, others were missing parts of their eyes. Naturally, rumors started spreading. People began talking about secret military experiments. Some blamed UFOs, others even believed something supernatural had happened in those mountains. But despite all the theories, no one had any real answers. And with every new discovery, the mystery only seemed to grow deeper. Over the years, people came up with all kinds of explanations. Some believed the group had stumbled upon secret military experiments, others blamed UFOs, and naturally, there were even stories about ATs and supernatural forces hiding in the mountains. But despite all of these theories, none of them could even be proven. And for decades, the Dyatlov Pass incident remained one of the greatest unsolved mystery in the world until recent years, because modern researchers and scientists decided to revisit the case. And according to one of the most widely accepted explanations today, the answer might have been much simpler: a rare type of avalanche. Not the massive avalanches we usually imagine, but something called a slab avalanche, a powerful layer of snow capable of forcing the hikers to leave their tent in the middle of the night. And by the time they realized the danger had passed, it was already too late. But even today, not everyone is convinced, because some questions still remain unanswered. And maybe that's why the Dyatlov Pass incident continues to fascinate people around the world. Because after more than 60 years, we are still trying to understand what really happened on freezing night.